Welcome. Today we're doing a deep dive into the Trump-Putin Alaska summit. We're really going to unpack this moment, try to understand its strategic outcomes, and, its lasting impact.
It was quite a scene, wasn't it? That red carpet welcome for Putin in Alaska,
Oh,
on U.S. soil.
yeah.
And then this really stark contrast with President Zelensky just not being there, not invited to the talks.
Right.
And look, that wasn't some oversight. It felt very calculated. A clear message, really, and frankly, a strategic win for Moscow right off the bat.
So our mission today, yours and mine, is to figure out why this meeting didn't really chart any path to peace.
Exactly. But instead seemed to, well, solidify a pretty major shift in foreign policy.
Okay, so let's talk about that shift. You mentioned it. Can you maybe elaborate on the core change there? Especially this move from pushing for an immediate ceasefire to then talking about a full peace agreement.
Yeah.
Why is that distinction so important here?
Well, that pivot, it lines up perfectly with the Kremlin's playbook, doesn't it? The ceasefire you see would have frozen the conflict right there. It would have stopped Russia's brutal meat grinder tactics. But shifting to a peace agreement without a ceasefire first, that let Russia keep using the fighting itself as leverage, keep grinding away. Fiona Hill actually noted, quite pointedly, that the U.S. basically gave up its main demand, ceasefire, for nothing tangible in return.
Okay, but couldn't someone argue that going for any kind of peace agreement, even if it takes longer, is still, a step towards ending the fighting eventually, regardless of the immediate situation on the ground?
You could argue that, sure, peace is always the goal. But this felt very transactional.
Transactional.
Yeah, prioritizing just ending the conflict over how it ends, over a just resolution. And that sent a really chilling message, especially to allies.
How did allies take it?
Well, many saw it as the U.S. essentially selling out Ukraine. It signals that American commitments might be conditional, flexible.
Which damages trust.
Profoundly. It erodes trust in alliances, pushing towards this America alone idea, where partnerships are maybe seen as temporary.
And that ties into the whole America First idea, right? That perspective which is skeptical of multinational agreements, seeing wars like Ukraine as just costly drains.
Exactly.
Wanting to stop the endless flow of American treasure, as the phrase goes.
Precisely. And that viewpoint helps explain why the U.S. might engage directly with Russia, over the head of its partner, Ukraine. If Ukraine's borders and sovereignty are suddenly negotiable, well, European leaders are definitely watching that and wondering about their own security guarantees.
This whole discussion about conditional promises, it brings up history. What about the Budapest Memorandum from 1994? Did that play into the context here at all?
Oh, absolutely. It's incredibly relevant. Remember, under Budapest, Ukraine gave up the world's third largest nuclear arsenal.
Right. For security assurances.
Assurances, exactly. From the U.S., Russia, and the U.K. Pledges to respect its borders, not use force. Now, okay, an assurance isn't an ironclad guarantee like NATO's Article 5.
Sure, there's a legal difference.
But Russia's invasions are just a catastrophic breach of that agreement. Any pressure on Ukraine now to concede territory feels like, it betrays the whole spirit of that assurance.
That is a really worrying takeaway. It suggests U.S. promises might look, temporary, valid only until maybe a better deal seems possible.
That's the devastating lesson here, potentially. That nations might conclude they simply can't trade away real deterrents, like nuclear weapons, for promises on paper ever again. It makes the world far more dangerous, doesn't it? Undermines trust globally.
So given all these shifts, the undermining of past agreements, what does it mean for actually getting to a just peace? It feels like the summit couldn't possibly bridge the gap between what each side fundamentally wants.
That's really the crux of it. You look at Putin's view, laid out in his 2021 essay. He sees Ukraine as sort of an artificial state, part of a single people with Russia. He's aiming for regime change, maybe even erasing Ukrainian identity. Ukraine demands, quite clearly, full territorial integrity back to the 1991 borders. They want NATO membership, uncompromised independence. It's an ideological chasm. Good faith negotiation seems, almost impossible under those conditions.
So the legacy of the summit, when you boil it down, looks like a pretty clear win for Putin. He came in somewhat isolated internationally,
right,
and left with that isolation fractured, and U.S. pressure arguably shifting more towards Kiev to make concessions.
It is a significant victory for him strategically. Yeah. And the chill from Alaska, it really extends much further than Anchorage. It casts a deep freeze over American credibility worldwide.
Which leaves us with a pretty stark question, doesn't it?
It does. What does it really mean for global stability?
when U.S. commitments start to look fleeting and the international order seems to rely less on pledged protection, and maybe more on just brute force, something for all of us to think about.